So last video we spoke about the Edifier MR4, the studio monitor speakers, budget studio monitor speakers that you can use for gaming, for music, things like that. So today I want to go back to talking about headphones, specifically a headset that is regarded as the best headphones you can get for gaming. I am of course talking about what you can see right here, the Audeze, I don't know how you pronounce it, but Audeze Maxwells. As you can tell, I have the Xbox version. The main reason I got this one is because I primarily will use this on my PC. These also work with your PS5. I will be speaking about how to do that. And also they come with Dolby Access, a license key inside the headset itself, so you get access to Dolby audio on your PC. Now, one of the reasons that I want to talk about the Maxwells was because I've been using the SteelSeries Arctis 7P for a really long time for my PS5 and for my PC, on top of my Airpods Pro Max and also the Razer Hammerhead, for which I've made a video in the past. I got the SteelSeries headset when the PS5 first came out, so around 2020, and I felt that it was time for an upgrade or at least a change, and I thought I should share my experience moving to the Maxwells and whether or not I felt it was a big enough jump from an Arctis 7P given its very hefty price. Talking about the price, the Audeze Maxwell, the Xbox version, is $330 USD, and if you want to get just the PS5 version, that is $300. With the $330, as I mentioned, you also get access to Dolby, which is kind of the main reason why the price is a little bit higher than the PS5 version. But if you got the PS5 version but want to use Dolby on your PC, you're able to do so. You just need to purchase a license when you get it on your PC. Now with that, why don't we look at the headset a little bit more in depth and see what makes it so special. So I thought it'd be much easier just to kind of have everything unboxed rather than doing an unboxing and just kind of going from there. Here, of course, is the headset. First thing I'm kind of noticing is that it is kind of heavy, which is interesting. Obviously more on that later. I haven't tested this out on my head yet, but just kind of noticing it. So I'm going to make sure that it is tracking this so you can see it more clearly. It is a good looking headset, and I like how kind of springy it is, kind of flexible. I kind of like that. And even the cups, the way they move, feel really smooth. But yeah, like kind of heavy. Of course, we also have the USB-C to USB-C cable. You can use this to charge the headset itself. I do wish they gave us a brick at the end. You know, like I guess the expectation is that a lot of us have a brick or a USB-C endpoint in our PCs, laptops, whatever it may be, even on your PS5. So I feel like the expectation is they just connect it into any one of those. But I feel like a lot of companies kind of are cheapening out on not giving us those bricks, which is kind of disappointing. Then here we have the boom arm or the boom mic, the microphone itself that you attach into the headset. I'll do a whole test on this, but I do like that it is detachable. So, you know, if you just want the headset as is on your head when you're listening to music, playing games, you're not really speaking to anyone, I like that you can just kind of take it off. And of course, for us 90s kids, we have the aux cable, you know, past the aux, if that makes sense to anyone. I'm going to get this in a little bit more clear here. But of course, you can connect this into your headset and directly into something where there is a 3.5mm endpoint. You can also connect it to your PS5 or Xbox controller. I know both of them have that kind of little jack in port, so you can kind of connect it directly in there in case for whatever reason you need to. And last but not least, we have the dongle. This dongle is quite tiny. It is also a USB-C dongle, and right here we can see it is it's on the PC part of it, but you can kind of move it to the left, and now it's meant for the Xbox, whatever it is, right? Like it's just a way for it to kind of detect what type of console, whatever it is. From what I have read online for PS5, we need to keep it on the PC side, but obviously I'll do a test on that to make sure that's kind of how it works. I also kept this just to show you that when you do get the Audeze Maxwell for Xbox, you get access to Dolby Atmos for headphones directly through the app. I believe the dongle or the headset itself has a chip or some sort of a thing installed in it for the Dolby Access app to know that it is kind of part of it and we don't need to pay that one-time fee. I believe the one-time fee in USD is around $15 or so. You'll have to check your local currency based on where you are. But if you do get the Xbox edition, you do kind of get this included. So something to kind of think about. So going into the specs of the headset itself, these have 90mm planar magnetic drivers. The best way I could understand it from a casual perspective is that there's a thing called a diaphragm. Between the diaphragm or around the diaphragm, there are two magnets that are helping emulate the sound. Because there are two magnets, they're essentially allowing the sound to be emulated more correctly or more accurately to what is, what the artist or the game maker, whatever they're trying to show you. It's supposed to be able to kind of give you that big thumping bass when you need it. It's able to kind of give you a much wider soundscape. These drivers will basically give you the most accurate, most bone-chilling sound you can possibly get. These are also the type of drivers that a lot of those high-end audiophilic headsets usually have. I don't know why I said audiophilic. I'm assuming that's correct. Hopefully it is. But that's also why this really stands out compared to other headsets. Now, other headsets typically have dynamic drivers, which have one magnet, and they have a cone, which essentially the magnet connects to the cone, and then that kind of emulates the sound into the diaphragm. Again, I'm not an expert on this. The whole idea is that these planar magnetic drivers are kind of the most high-end drivers you can get for headphones, so these having in them is a good thing. This headset also apparently has 80 hours of battery life. I've not tested that. That's going to take me a while to test, but that is pretty good. Of course, with the dongle, that means we get that 2.4 gigahertz connection with the headset, which is typically much better, at least in my opinion, or from what I've seen, than a Bluetooth connection. It should also be really good in terms of the range, and I'm going to test all of this out on my side as well, just going to confirm if that is true. But I always prefer connecting things using a dongle or something like that. The overall frame is made using aluminum, and it has like this little kind of leathery or pleather type thing here. I'm assuming obviously it's to kind of, avoid your hair or head touching the top of the headset, which could probably get uncomfortable, especially because of the weight of this headset. But I'm not a big fan of this being this pleather material because I feel like that this is gonna get a little hot as well. We of course have the on and off button here, the mute switch here, which is again really good, really great access point. We have our USB-C in, the aux cable in, this is for the mic. We have like this really, I love it when headsets do this, is where you have the switch on your headset to push it more towards the game or the chat. So if you want to hear your friends when you're playing a game, you can kind of just switch it towards the chat side. If you want to hear the game more than your friends for whatever reason, you switch it more towards the game side. Really great. We of course have the volume here as well. And that seems to be our overall look at the headset. Now, of course, we should move back and talk a little bit about the testing I'm going to be doing. So in order to test this out, I thought the best thing I could do is first test it out in an online game, see how the directional audio is, whether or not I can pick up any footsteps, other players, things like that, and also just the immersion, right? Just being in that space, hearing either the sound of other players, the atmosphere, whatever it is, if that adds to the overall experience. Then of course I'll test this in a single player game, see how it is in terms of just kind of the music, again the atmosphere, how it feels to play a game like that. And last but not least, music. Since these are using drivers that are typically used in those audiophile headphones, I think it'll be really great to test this out with just music in general. I will also be testing this out on my PS5 to make sure that the audio sounds similar to what I experienced on the PC, although the PC does have the app, which we will talk about a little bit later. And last but not least, the microphone. How does it sound to speak with your friends? How does it sound in general? So with that, let's get started. So here we are with the Audeze Maxwell attached. It is connected with the dongle. The first game I wanted to try is Delta Force. This is a big game on Steam right now. They have a bunch of different modes, but the key thing is it's an online game. There's also, non-online versions or parts of it too, but this should give us an idea of how it feels to play the game, how it feels to kind of hear any footsteps, things around you, immersion. I think the key thing is whether or not this is something you can use for any competitive type gameplay. So obviously the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go back and choose the right mode. So I will let the music kind of play in the background just so you can kind of hear what I'm supposed to be hearing. But enough talk, let's just get into the game. Oh, I forgot I can't run whilst looking down the sights. There's a tank behind us. Alright, this is pretty immersive. I'm just going to say, oh my god. Oh wow, okay. I'm trying to see if I can hear my own teammates and their footsteps. So see the explosions, I can hear on the right, really good explosions and bass coming through, really, really good. Like it's really impressive. Now the gunshots that was coming towards me as well, they sounded pretty good too. I could obviously see it's coming my way, but just the kind of like impactful sound that comes through it does hit through really well. I mean, obviously, it all comes down to the sound design of the game. So they did a good job with the sound design in the game itself. But in terms of the headset, it does come through a lot better than what I was expecting. So I can hear all the gunshots coming out from the distance. I can hear from my right side, which is good. Definitely heard that or felt that. Yeah, just kind of moving through. I can hear stuff on my left, and that is exactly what's happening on my left. So it's not like I'm getting some phantom sounds or anything like that. Same thing from my right. I can hear gunshots on the right. I look to the right. Oh my god. And of course I'm getting shot at. Even just like the sniper shots coming your way or just kind of missing you. It's a really, really good sound. It's a really cool, like 3D-esque sound where you can almost feel like, oh yeah, it just missed me, you know? So that way they did a good job. And the main thing is your headset will communicate that. Like at least these Maxwells do a good job of showing you that. Just in terms of the footsteps and everything, it is cool. I'm facing away from where all my teammates and everyone is. Being a bad teammate, as you can tell, I can hear them behind. I can hear from the headset that it is behind me. That's cool. So it does come through pretty well, and I can see this being pretty useful in like any competitive type game. All right, so why don't we switch over to something that's more up to my speed, which is Call of Duty. All right, sound-wise, this is pretty good so far. Like the explosions, yeah, like the bass and everything comes through really, really well in this. All right, so that was pretty good. I did hear them on the left. Obviously, I didn't turn quickly enough, but I did hear them on the left. That was pretty cool. Yep. Okay, I kind of heard them on that side as well. Trying to find them, couldn't find them. But see, it is giving you that information that you would want from a headset like this. I will say it's a little hit or miss. Like sometimes it does sound a little bit more muffled to a degree. Not that the sound isn't coming through, but because I guess so much stuff is happening, it's hard to kind of like gauge kind of where things are coming from sometimes. But that might just be the game being this game, you know. So the cool thing definitely is that you do feel the impact of everything, because when that shot hits, it has that really intense kind of sounding shot sound, kind of like that. And that combined with the bass in these headsets really does kind of combine to be really, 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 really good. I also have this headset set to just 50% as well. So overall, it did sound really good. Like I do kind of like how it sounds in this game. Like I was kind of mentioning, there are a lot of things happening in this game. So sometimes it does get a little bit too much and the headset can't pierce through everything. But if the directional audio wise, it does do what it's supposed to do. I think me being me and me not being as good at this game, I think that is probably what's not, you know, giving me the edge to a degree. But now that we've tested this here, we have an idea of how it sounds in online games, in directional audio, things like that. Let's switch over to what I feel this might be really, really good, which is single player games, especially games that are open world, maybe have a really amazing soundtrack that you would want to listen to. So let's switch over to that. All right, so now we'll jump into the good old Oblivion Remastered. One of the first Elder Scrolls games I ever played. It was really influential to me growing up. I thought this would be a perfect game to test out how the sound is. And obviously excuse how the game looks on my screen. You'll see it a little bit different. I'm just putting it into 1080p so that I can put in the capture accordingly. Doesn't matter for what we are trying to do. So I have the music set to around 58 already. Wow. You can already hear it on your side. Birds chirping. The little bit of piano playing in the background. Oh, wow. Wow, wow, wow. Oh my god, this sounds really good. I know it's not much. It's just a piano. Oh my god, and now the strings. I just want to stand for a second. This is amazing. You get this through the speakers to a degree, but the way the sound is coming through this, it just feels like a very high-end audio device that's emitting these sounds. Wow. Maybe this is because I'm coming from an older headset, but I do use my Airpods Pro Max quite a bit. And I have good studio monitors, although without any bass to it, but this for me is why I would want to get a headset like this. I don't play multiplayer games that much, but this is just so good. I do want to interact with someone to see how speech comes through. That is typically something that I've always noticed to be an issue. Not in this headset, but just headsets and audio devices in general. That's one of the reasons I like having subtitles on. But, you know, if this just does a better job or things come through better, that would be a big win for this headset as well. I mean, I don't see how this headset can fail right now because, like, I'm being fully honest, like, it is wowing me. Like, with the multiplayer stuff, you know, it's great. There are things it can do that people who play multiplayer games would enjoy, but this is kind of where, like, this is kind of what I've been missing from my speakers and everything. Alright, nice. Let's get some gameplay. Kill this crab. Yeah, even the sound of just the crab making that sound of dying, which is kind of weird to talk about, but again, good sounding stuff coming through. I should also mention that I have not turned on Dolby access audio or anything like that. Like, I'm just keeping it fully neutral as it is out of the box. And I'll do a mini test outside of it, or at least give you my thoughts on whether or not I found that to be anything that was fruitful, something that kind of gave an extra bit of bump to the headsets.
Can I help you?
Okay, I'm going to speak to Joffrey.
He's upstairs. Go ahead.
Okay, yeah, I mean, the speech audio, again, not bad. I didn't really notice anything crazy good, crazy bad about it.
I'm Brother Joffrey. What do you want? This cannot be. No one but the Emperor is permitted to handle the amulet. Let me see it.
Okay, so the cool thing was I was kind of waiting for it to hit. There's music playing in the background, and Joffrey was speaking at the same time. And the two kind of differentiated pretty well.
By the nine, this is the Amulet of Kings. Who are you? How did you get this? What do you know of the Emperor's death?
Yeah, it is coming pretty well. The speech is pretty good. Alright, so yeah, like, I think this is a great kind of headset for any single player kind of a game, especially when it comes to listening to audio from NPCs along with the music. I will test this out again on the PS5 with a story-based game there. But again, this was eye-opening. Now, why don't we switch over to just listening to music and see how music kind of comes across on this headset. Alright, so for this next part, we're on Epidemic Sound. I use their music on my channel, so hopefully nothing should get copyrighted, anything like that. I want to take a song, something that I feel can kind of showcase what this headset can do, play it so you can hear it on your side, and also I'll be hearing it on my side, and I'll give you my honest thoughts. Okay, wow. The bass is really, really good on these headsets. Wow. The cool thing is the bass really differentiates itself from like the other sounds. I can hear everything else really clearly. I might be speaking a little bit loud because of how loud it is on the headset. Best thing I can compare this to is my Sonos surround sound setup that I have outside, which is way more expensive than this headset. This is really, really good. Wow. It's really good for rock and roll and hard rock, heavy metal, things like that. Wow. Wow. This is really good. Okay. I'm gonna pause that there and just say that yeah, this is a very, very good headset if you just want to listen to music, because that was surprising. Like, I could easily see this replacing my AirPods Pro Max or something like that in terms of just the type of sound it's able to create or recreate in this headset is pretty impressive, and it does, at least for me, have a much better sounding bass. For the rock song that I was just kind of playing, everything was fine, and it might just be the sound itself kind of coming, because I am streaming it on the Epidemic Sound website. Like, it did get a little muffled-ish to a degree, but that might just be the sound in general. I don't want to, because the other sounds and song that we were listening to was perfectly fine. But even so, it was really good. It was something like I could use this as my listening headset. If I just want to sit down, listen to something on Spotify or just some music playing in the background, this could be the thing. Now, why don't we just kind of look at how we can activate Dolby Atmos for these speakers on the PC and whether or not that makes any difference to a degree. Okay, so as you can see, we have the Dolby Access app installed on the PC. Right now it tells me I can try it for 7 days or buy it for 18.99 Canadian dollars. So that'll be around 15 USD or so. And on the bottom right, it does say that if you have a headset with Dolby Atmos, just connect the device and you should probably get connected automatically. So I'm going to turn it on right now so we can test this out. All right, I got the power on. And it says USB dongle. Oh, there you go. It went through automatically, as you can see. Let me make this a little bit bigger. Hopefully I'm not stretching it outside of the screen capture. But if we go to products right here, it does say Dolby Atmos for headphones, ready to use on the speakers, Game-Audeze Maxwell. Okay, I want to make sure on the bottom right, on my sound setup, yes, it does say Dolby Atmos for headphones. So I'm going to the Dolby Atmos website itself. It gives you a Dolby Atmos demo that you can try it out. So I'm going to just try out this demo. Let's do Hypnotic Rema. Now I might need to remove the sound possibly if I might get copyrighted. But this is pretty cool. The bass is always really good on this from what I've seen so far. But this is really good. This is really good. I'm obviously not going to play for too long just in case. I don't know if there's going to be any issues with that. Okay. One thing I automatically notice is that everything feels a little bit louder. Doesn't mean that it's not a bad thing, but that's the first thing I'm noticing. But it is pretty cool that even with it being a little bit louder, I feel like I can hear everything as clearly without anything being muffled, if that makes sense. Now, let me pause this for a second. Look, it should be noted that in order for anything to kind of actually make use of the Dolby Atmos for headphones, from my understanding, is that the file and the source material itself, if it is designed for Dolby Atmos, kind of that experience, it'll obviously do better. Doesn't mean that you won't get some sort of a layered benefit. If you're listening to anything, if you're playing a game, you should still sort of get like that 3D audio experience. You'll get that either way, but that's something that I feel like should be noted, just so that you might think that, hey, everything has Dolby Atmos, everything will be amazing. There'll definitely be certain things that if they're designed for Dolby Atmos or have that source in mind, which it'll just be a lot better on these headsets. Now with that, why don't we switch over to the PS5, show you how it connects on the PS5 and how it sounds there as well. So when it comes to the PS5 and connecting it to the PS5, I forgot to mention it that it was in this box. You do get a extender for the dongle in the box itself with the Audeze Maxwell headset. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because you will need to use this when connecting to your PS5. First thing you need to make sure is on the dongle itself, it is switched to the PC mode. The next step is to connect it into that dongle extender and then connect it to the back of your PS5 in the USB slot there. Now you may be wondering, why should we connect it to the back of the PS5? I honestly do not know. I connected the dongle to the front and also with the extender into the USB in front of the PS5 as well. But for whatever reason, it does not recognize the headset at that point. It just does not connect. But when I connected it to the back of the PS5, I'm assuming that USB dongle slot itself gets more power from the PS5 possibly, but when I connected it to the back, it did work. So just be aware of that. In the PS5 itself, you'll just go to your audio settings in the home menu. You'll see it pop up in the sound devices slot and just switch to Audeze Maxwell. It will say Xbox version, does not matter, and you are basically good to go. When it comes to testing out the games, the first one I checked out was Valorant. That's a game that heavily relies on footsteps, directional audio, and knowing where your enemies and your teammates are at all times. As with my testing on the PC, in the end, the directional audio sounded great. I was hearing footsteps, I was hearing where people were on my left, on my right, and I was turning around accordingly. Same thing when it comes to the shooting, things like that. Everything sounded great. Overall, it's a headset that provides you with the information you need to be competitive. The next game I tried out was Marvel Rivals, another game that is very competitive. It's an online game. You do get that directional audio, but more than that, because it's a game with superheroes, there's a lot of things happening on the screen at times. The key thing I look for is immersion. How does it feel when you have things happening all around you? What type of information are you getting? At the same time, the directional audio, making sure you know where those hits or those enemies are at all times and whenever possible. Even with Marvel Rivals, it was great. Of course, the soundtrack itself is so good on the headset. It really does come through and is really amplified by those planar drivers. And I can see this being a blast playing with my friends on my PS5. The last game I tested out was Assassin's Creed Shadows. This is a single player based game. It's more about the immersion, the world. It's an open world game, things that are happening around you, how does it come through? And again, really good job of just kind of amplifying what's happening around you. You get all the little bits and pieces, the birds chirping, the sound of the grass, horses, people talking, things like that. It really comes through, of course, with the mini soundtrack sessions going on in the background as well. Really like playing Assassin's Creed with these headsets on. So if you're someone that may not have a expensive surround sound setup, these headsets will give you something very similar. And just in case if you're wondering, yes, the microphone does work on the Audeze Maxwell on the PS5. I did a mini test as well. It came through in terms of how my audio sounded great as well. With that, why don't we switch over, put the headset on, and show you how the microphone sounds. All right, we got the headset on. You will be hearing me through the microphone over here. It's a pretty simple setup of just connecting it. You just plug it in. You might be wondering why I have this little handle sticking out. So this is my vacuum. What I want to do was something a lot of other creators have also tried. I feel like it'll be good for this video as well, is to see how the noise suppression works on this headset. Now, noise suppression is a feature of this headset. There is a button placed right in front of the microphone or the microphone jack here. It has two options. Of course, if you don't include it being off, there's either noise suppression low and then there's noise suppression high. So I'm just going to read through the lyrics of one of my favorite songs of all time. And as I read through it, I'm going to turn the vacuum on so you can hear how it sounds with the vacuum on. Then I'll turn the noise suppression to low and then high. I'll make sure to note it down in the video itself so you'll know when I switched it to low or high. But I'm hoping this should give you an idea of how it sounds with the noise suppression off, low, and high. So let's get started. So close, no matter how far. Couldn't be much more from the heart. Forever trusting who we are, and nothing else matters. Never open myself this way. Life is ours, we live it our way. All these words I don't just say, and nothing else matters. Trust I seek, and I find in you. Every day for us something new. Open mind for a different view, and nothing else matters. Never cared for what they do, never cared for what they know, but I know, so close, no matter how far, couldn't be much more from the heart, forever trusting who we are, and nothing else matters. So we're back to noise suppression being off, no vacuum, nothing like that. So from what you might have heard on your side and from my own testing, it does do a pretty good job. Now, would I use this headset for making videos like this or for podcasts, things like that? Probably not. This is not really meant for content creation, things like that. If you do have this, but you don't have a microphone or a dedicated microphone, it does not mean you cannot content create with this. But as you can tell, clarity wise, it's not going to be the same as having a dedicated microphone. But what it is meant for, which is to play with your friends online, it does a fantastic job, especially with the noise suppression at low. When it goes too high, you might have noticed that my sound or the way I was talking or my voice itself was a little bit modulated. Sometimes comes off a little bit more artificial. A lot of people might be okay with that, but for me, the low was kind of sweet spot. It did let a little bit of the vacuum seep through when I'm speaking, but it still did muffle it out enough that most of your teammates that you're playing with probably won't even notice it. All right, let's switch back to my regular microphone. So here we have the Audeze HQ or the Audeze app for Windows. The first thing you will see is the settings page. We have the headset firmware, the dongle firmware. You can make sure that's up to date. There's an option for auto shutdown in case you want to set that up. It's currently set to 1 hour, which is, I think, more than enough. There's also this voice prompts option. What that is anytime you turn your headset on or off or change one of the options or do anything to it, you get a mini voice prompt that says on, off, things like that. Just letting you know which option you selected. We also have a volume limiter option in case you want to limit the volume up to a certain point. And then on the right side, we can see the UI, some of the UI options. We got it showing that it's turned on. Of course, that there's 97% battery left. It's currently on mute, which makes sense because I'm using this mic right now. And also that the dongle is connected. Now going over to Maxwell Mix Amp, which is kind of the main thing with this app. We have a side tone option to turn it on or off, the level if you want, the mix chat as well. If you don't want to use the wheel on the headset itself, you can do it right here on the app. And then of course we have the equalizer settings. We have a couple of, or more than a couple of preset settings as well. Out of the box, we have settings called Audeze, treble boost, bass boost, immersive, competition, and footsteps. Now, as you can tell, when I click on any of these, it doesn't really show you what equalizer settings are pushed up or pushed down. So there's no way of knowing that unless you have a really good ear of kind of being able to tell those things, which is a little bit disappointing because sometimes you want to know what they've bumped up or bumped down so you can kind of fine tune it on your own in your own preset settings. Talking about your own preset settings, we have 4 different presets that we can set up. Of course, out of the box, it's completely neutral, so it's set to the middle, but you can move it around based on what you prefer, what things you like listening to when it comes to gaming and also just music. So as you can see, they have some options for the equalizer settings and how you would want your headset to sound, but other than that, there's not a lot to it. That's basically what there is on this app. Unfortunately, nothing to do with the microphone and how it sounds there, which is a little disappointing as well. Now, why don't we head back and talk about some of the other headsets I've used and how they compare to the Audeze Maxwells. So in terms of other headsets that I've used, the first one I'll probably want to talk about is the SteelSeries Arctis 7P. I got these headsets when the PS5 was first coming out. This was kind of SteelSeries's, I guess, flagship PS5 headset at that time with the Tempest Audio 3D, all that stuff that was coming out with the PS5. And as you can tell, this headset is still standing, it's still doing a good job. We don't get these anymore, but you do get the SteelSeries Arctis Nova 7, which is basically the same from my understanding. They do cost 150 USD, so it isn't as expensive as the Audeze Maxwell, but in terms of what it does for the price of 150 USD, it does more than enough to justify that price. Now, what I mean by that is when it comes to playing with your friends, the mic sounds great. And when you're playing online games with your friends, the key thing that you're looking for is the directional audio. It picks up on all that stuff. You're able to hear things on your left or the right, whatever is happening, all the information you need, you will get from this headset. And when it comes to just casual listening as well, again, this headset does excel quite a bit. Now, to be completely honest, it's not as good as the Audeze Maxwell. There isn't that punch, especially the bassy punch that you might be looking for when you're playing a game like Call of Duty, things like that, where there's a lot of explosions, or even single player games like Elder Scrolls Oblivion, where you're just kind of trying to immerse yourself in the world. You will still be immersed. It's not like you will not get that, but the Audeze Maxwell does get that little bump up. Again, it's also more expensive and has a different set of drivers as well. The next headset I want to look at, something I made a video about a while back, are the Airpods Pro Max. And of course, this is not a typical comparison that you should be making with a gaming headset, but I just wanted to bring this up because these are 440 USD, so they're quite expensive. They're of course made by Apple, and this is my primary listening headset for when I wanted to listen to music. And in general, you might look around when it comes to reviews and just the thoughts on Airpods Pro Max. A lot of people do rely on this or use this as a headset that they focus on or use for listening to music. And I will say, when comparing this to the Audeze Maxwell, the Audeze Maxwell does do a good job, and it's more in tune with what I listen to or what I like in music and what I want from a headset. This is really great for that neutral sound, for just kind of giving you what the instruments actually sound like, kind of like the studio monitors that I have in the back. But if you're someone that wants that punchy bass, something that kind of gives you that vibration but it doesn't make anything sound muffled, the Audeze Maxwell does have the edge. For gaming, these are great headset, but again, I will give it to Audeze Maxwell there as well. Again, like that is more in tune or more meant for something like gaming, so it will be more in tune with that. So I don't want to keep beating on this or anything like that as well, because this is a good listening headset even for games. But the Audeze Maxwell of course does get the edge on that. The microphone way better on the Audeze Maxwell by miles. And last but not least, the Razer Hammerhead Hyperspeed earbuds. These were my primary kind of way or mode of listening to games when I would play on my PC, and also playing with my friends before I kind of switched back to the Arctis 7P for a little bit. These have been really, really good, and in terms of the sound are punching way above what you would expect. These are 150 USD. I made a video about this on my channel. Maybe I mentioned that before as well, so definitely check that out. Amazing set of earbuds. But again, 150 USD, it will give you 150 USD's worth of value in a way. Audio sounds great when you're playing with friends, although I will say that since I got this after I made the review, when I do play simulation racing games with my friends, we play iRacing sometimes, and I use on Discord, he did notice that my voice would sound a little muffled at times, so I would kind of switch between this and my AirPods Pro at times just to kind of see which sounds better. And a lot of times my AirPods did sound a lot better than this. It could be just a setting or some issue on my side. I just wanted to bring that up. But in terms of just listening, really great, really surprisingly good bass on this. And when it comes to single player games, really great for just kind of getting you immersed. Also very, very comfortable, at least for someone like me who does like earbuds. I don't really like stuff that's kind of like pushing on my head all the time. These kind of stand out because of that. So in terms of battery life, it is 80 hours. I haven't really gotten a chance to fully test the 80 hours in terms of my gameplay and all of that, but it charged pretty quickly, which is great. I'm sure the 80 hours will be quite beneficial for anyone that plays long sessions, things like that. Hank, just come through. I know you're there.
I mean, I had a whole thing planned.
Yeah, I know. I'm sure it would have been great. Let's just skip all of this.
I was gonna knock on your door, there would be an Amazon box, I'll pop through, all that stuff.
Yeah, that sounds scary.
Okay, maybe next time. Let's get to it then. Why don't we just rewind for a second? What was this?
Oh yeah, okay. So Hank did catch that, and you might have caught that as well. The headset does get a little uncomfortable. This might be a me issue, but the cups, the way they feel, it just feels a little hot after a while. And sometimes it's not even hot, it's just uncomfortable. It's okay for a short period of time, but even in my case, after a while, I was kind of having to remove it a little bit just to kind of give my ears some air. That coupled with the headset itself being a little heavy, it's not perfect. Now, it doesn't mean that you want to adjust to it. Because I use my Airpods Pro Max quite a bit and the Steel Series or sometimes my earbuds, I'm accustomed to more lighter weight headsets and just earbuds in general. But that is something that I wish was a little bit better. Maybe if they went for a more of a fabric style cups or a mesh style cup, something like that. Just so that I don't feel like I need to kind of remove the headset here and there just to kind of give me some breathing room. And especially when you're playing a game, you don't want to have to do that here and there as well.
How about that software? I mean, you're spending all this money and that's all you get.
Yeah, look, the software isn't the best. It's pretty bare bones. It lets you change the EQ settings and stuff here and there up to kind of what you would want to do, but it doesn't give you any guidance as to what setting does what. And the inbuilt presets also don't do a good job of telling you what they set it to, so you don't know what you need to change in order to get something close to the preset, but also so you can fine tune it to your ears. Now, do I wish there was more things on that software that we could kind of take advantage of? Maybe the way the noise suppression works, maybe something to do with ANC, which I know this doesn't have. Sure, like that would be great. It doesn't take away from the overall headset and what it can do. Most of all, it doesn't take away from any competitive gaming experience you might have and also any single player gaming experience you might have. You will still be very, very immersed.
Talking about money, other than me borrowing $5 from you so I can go back home after this, why is it so expensive? Is it really worth $300?
Okay, yeah. Price is pretty high for this, and when you compare it to a lot of other headsets like the Arctis Pro Nova wireless headsets or other gaming headsets from Turtle Beach, things like that, Logitech as well, you gotta compare it in terms of what this can do. $300 for the PlayStation edition and $330 for the PlayStation/Xbox/ Dolby Atmos edition. It's a hefty price, but in terms of what it can do, this is kind of giving you those drivers that are typically found in those audiophilic headphones. I don't know why I keep saying audiophilic. Now it goes back to how much are you willing to pay to get what is deemed as the top end headset at the moment. For $150, you can get really good SteelSeries Arctis headsets like the 7, for example, where you will get basically everything the Audeze Maxwell does, just missing a couple of things that the Audeze Maxwell have that your ears might not even miss. It is important to remember that sound and how you perceive them and how these headsets will be adjusted to you, it's all subjective. It depends on you and what you listen to and what you prefer. But if you're someone that comes from a sound listening background, like an audiophile background, and you're used to, you're aware of these planar magnetic drivers, maybe you have a big surround sound setup with your TV, maybe you have different wired headphones as well that you listen for different types of music. This is something where you'll feel at home, and I'm pretty sure price-wise, this will be a lot cheaper than what you might have spent on those wired headphones or a surround sound setup as well.
Looking through my notes here, I think we got it all.
Wow, that has to be the lowest amount of highbrow issues you brought to me ever.
Alright, toodles.
Next time, just knock.
I won't.
So in terms of my final thoughts, the Audeze Maxwells are simply amazing. The closest thing I can compare this to in my house is my Sonos surround sound setup, which is a over $1,000 setup that I currently have. The bass in this comes out so clearly, it never comes off too overpowering. You never feel like anything else is being muffled, and it gives you the right details at the right moment. You don't feel like you've missed a thing that's happening in a game. At the same time, the fact that these are such great music listening headset, I feel like this can easily replace my AirPods Pro Max for when I'm just sitting, listening to music on my phone or on the computer. Now, will the weight and the feel of the cup deter me from using this long term? It's very, very possible. I'm going to keep testing it out. I'm going to see how it feels over time. Knowing me, I can easily see that being an issue. And either I'll have to replace these cups with something I can find on Amazon, or I'll revert back to my earbuds or just using the monitors itself. That's not something you would want to hear, especially when you spend $330 USD on a pair of gaming headsets. But it's also important to remember that sort of an issue when it comes to the weight feels on the ear, that is very subjective and it might not apply to you. As mentioned when I was talking about price, if you're just looking for a good pair of headset, but you just want to use it for online play most of the time, I would steer you towards the SteelSeries Arctis 7 or even the 5s. Those are reasonably priced headsets. At the same time, they give you really good quality sound, and most importantly, you can use it to speak to your friends in a very, very clear manner. But if you want the top end of the top end gaming headset right now, look no further than the Audeze Maxwells. For those of you that made it this far, thank you so much. It means a lot. There's a bunch of cool things that I'm testing right now, and I'll be making a video on those soon. Controllers, gaming consoles, things like that are all coming out soon as well. So please look forward to that. Thanks, and I hope to see you next time. Bye.